Thank you, Lungile. An absolute pleasure to be anchoring this session this morning with our esteemed guest. Just a quick intro for myself. My name is Jamil Isup. I'm a partner at PwC, leading the sustainability and assurance in assurance, specifically for SA. And today I'm joined by a very esteemed panelist, starting off with the CEO of the Independent Regulatory Board for Auditors, Imre Nagy. I don't think he needs any introduction. As well as Nicholas van Wyk, the CEO from the Chartered Institute for Business Accountants. And not forgetting Namsa, who's the project director of SAICA with regards to sustainability reporting. And our last but not least panelist, who's thankfully joined the session in the last minute, Lee Swan from Alex Forbes, in her role as the sustainability I think it's CSO of Alex Forbes. So just reflecting on the last day and a half, very deep conversations around the landscape from a South African perspective, the challenges that we're facing, the pros and cons from both the preparer and the regulator's perspective. Quite interesting to hear from them. And obviously, the next phase is really around when it comes to the assurance aspect of it. Is looking at investors, both public and unlisted companies, reporting this information. The big question is around, can this information be trusted? And effectively, our regulators play a significant role in that regard. And perhaps to start off with a question to Imre from the IRBA around what role are they playing with regards to the audit profession, specifically sustainability reporting.
Well, thank you, Jamil, and good morning, everybody. So let me start off first of all by placing assurance. Where does assurance fit into this sort of ecosystem called sustainability? So for me personally, we in the realms here of the social compact. That is the unwritten agreement between citizens and institutions. And what we're seeing here is with more, sort of floods and fires, etc., these sort of disasters that you see across the world, there will be more pressure, I think, from the citizens in terms of their basic human rights to be protected on governments and large companies to carefully assess the impact of their businesses on the environment. Just yesterday, I saw an article of 6 youths taking 32 countries to court. And it's for the first time in history, there will be a court case in the European Union around citizens and younger citizens. We all know, they focused on sustainability and the social impact, and they want to make a difference. So I think as the world proceeds on sustainability, it's here to stay. Yes, and because of that, there will be pressure on governments to put policy in place. So it must be underlined by or underwritten by policy, global and local policy. And on top of that, then you will have to have some form of reporting framework that's consistent and comparable across jurisdictions. And yes, investors will obviously also look at it, but the real beneficiaries here are not the investors from a financial perspective, but the citizens of the world. And assurance, this is where assurance comes in. If a company puts out numbers and statistics, etc., around sustainability, it needs to be trusted. And this is where assurance comes in. So the IRBA, just briefly, we're a small regulator. We're an independent regulator, but we have less than 100 staff that regulates the audit profession in the country. We have about 3,500 registered auditors. We do not regulate accountants. For example, we do not regulate accountants in companies that are preparers of information. But we believe that auditors play a crucial role in providing assurance on sustainability reporting, and we expect that it will continue to grow in importance alongside financial reporting. We, as the IRBA, support the merit and the need for high-quality sustainability reporting as a means to strengthen corporate governance and accountability. And we've heard a couple of times during this event that investors are concerned around greenwashing, for example. And this is making a strong case for assurance. And I wouldn't say limited assurance, I would say reasonable assurance for it to be really meaningful. I think everyone will agree that things are moving at a rapid pace. We've heard, for example, that the ISSB was, since being established in 2021, in about a year and a half, they put out the IFRS S1 and S2 standards, and that's quite fast. And also locally, the JSE issued their sustainability and climate disclosure guidance. And yes, we recognize as an audit regulator the good work that JSE, SIPC, including the FRSC and other role players, is doing to move sustainability reporting forward, especially to get it mandated. I guess that is the big question here. You know, should we have a mandated reporting framework in place as a baseline for companies and organizations? As regulators, we're fearful of falling behind. Therefore, as the IRBA, we established a multi-stakeholder sustainability standing committee to help us develop sustainability assurance standards and guidance. And the committee comprises 14 members from audit firms, universities, the Auditor General, and also is attended by SAICA and companies like Coca-Cola, because we want to hear from different stakeholders. And many of those stakeholders are in the room, and we really appreciate your participation in our activities. It's actually chaired by Jyoti Vallabh, who was on the previous panel from Deloitte. We also participate directly in global IAASB and IASB audit and ethics standard setting activities with our own staff and with South African representatives. We also comment on all relevant developments like the ISSB developments and proposals. We commented on those. And yes, I think I would like to touch a little bit, without taking too much time, on the role of regulators. Regulators including the JSE, SIPC, FSCA, and IRBA, we play such an important part in promoting and ensuring the quality of sustainability reporting and assurance. And it's crucial for us as regulators to establish this legal framework for the reporting and assurance thereon. We play as regulators a critical role in setting reporting standards, assurance standards, and ensuring compliance. So there's that oversight role as well that is quite important. There's currently no mandate and no mandatory assurance requirements in South Africa on sustainability reporting. And just two more points. From a regulatory perspective, something that's often forgotten in these discussions is the ethics of ESG. The IRBA ethics code will be revised shortly to match some of the revisions and proposed international ISBA code adjustments to address sustainability by non-auditors or non-accountants. It just shows that this is much bigger than just financial. It goes beyond just financial, but we do believe that the auditing profession and accountants can play a significant role because they already have a framework that can be emulated in the sustainability reporting space. Regulators will also need to focus, preparers and regulators will need to focus on curriculum and competencies of professionals, and we've recognized this as the IRBA already early. We've engaged with IFAC already, and we held a sustainability education focus group in July this year at our offices to discuss, what sort of competencies do you need to provide assurance on sustainability. And we welcome anybody in the room with similar initiatives to contact us and as the IRBA, and we're willing to participate and partner with relevant bodies as well in putting or moving this topic forward. I'll stop there. Jamil, I would like to cover maybe a little bit more, but on what the standards that we're currently putting out, but maybe I'll give some of the other panelists a chance first.
Thanks, Yamiri. Just 2 points that I've taken away. The one on limited versus reasonable assurance, and the fact that we're trying to open that up now to other market players within the profession. to be able to assist companies in providing those limited and reasonable assurance. I think looking at the capacity issues that we've spoken about in depth over the last year and a half, I think it's a step in the right direction. You've also mentioned that you're not a regulator of accountants. We have two professional accounting bodies on the stage today. Perhaps NOMSA, from a SAICA perspective, I know you also have quite a number of committees, specifically with regards to sustainability, the Sustainability Technical Committee. Maybe if you can elaborate for us on, what are some of the things that SAICA is doing in this space?
Thank you, Jamil. So for us, as SAICA, we have the Sustainability Technical Committee, as you mentioned, which is known as the STC. And the STC's really main objective is to support SAICA in terms of navigating this evolving landscape of sustainability. And in doing so, then it also enables SAICA to be able to respond to the member needs in terms of sustainability and also other stakeholders as identified by SAICA. So what that also entails is a couple of focus areas that have been identified for the committee to focus on, which include sustainability reporting, especially focused on standard setters, and also looking at this whole global baseline of sustainability information. It also looks in terms of your sustainability assurance, and how can we support that as SAICA with all the members that we have, not only in South Africa, but globally. It also looks in terms of integrated thinking principles, or look at integrated thinking with specific reference to sustainability, using those principles and the IIRC framework. And also one of the focus areas is really in terms of being able, to elevate the role of the profession through capacity building and supporting, working together with other internal committees and bodies collaborating, so that where there are all the touch points of sustainability, we are able to touch on those and respond accordingly. I think also one of the key things with SAICA and sustainability is having the opportunity to be part of the different global organizations, accounting bodies, and also the standard setters. So where there is room for the voice of South Africa to be heard in terms of the work that has been done, whether it's through ABN or CAW, or even IFEC, where there are various also members that we have. So there's still progress that is being made, but we have used different platforms, for example, as in being able to respond through the STC in terms of the proposed changes that have been happening within the sustainability field, including now, as we know, preparing for the big assurance changes in respect to ESG. And those comment letters then really ensures that how we want things to be shaped in Africa and our focus areas. If you look, for example, at the ISSB, where it has the different agenda priorities, we ensured that we also do submit so that what we think is a priority for our companies, not only in terms of climate change, but in terms of also social justice, in terms of also, looking at TNFD and all the other areas, that we do make sure that, we respond accordingly.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. And I think as a chartered accountant myself, certainly appreciate the support that's coming through from SAICA, specifically on upskilling and capacity building. Talking about other professional bodies, perhaps maybe over to you, Nicholas. Just from a cyber perspective, maybe give us some insights around, I know you have a member body of in excess of 10,000, and we talk about capacity building and challenges faced by companies. I mean, what role do you see cyber playing in the sustainability reporting and assurance space?
Yeah, thank you very much. And first, I want to say it's a personal accomplishment of mine. I started my career with SIBA. Back then it was cyber in 2013. It took me now all of 10 years to sit next to our regulator, but finally,
I think it deserves a applaud for that.
I've arrived. So, yeah, big honor, and thank you very much. Appreciation for Imre. The profession went through a difficult time with state capture, load shedding. Very embarrassing, although not that I know of. I wasn't involved in any of those scandals, but it does affect your standing as an accountant. And so collectively, we took responsibility for what happened. All transactions in South Africa, if you calculate GDP, go through the fingers of an accountant. Whether it's a good accountant or a bad accountant, and even the mafia needs an accountant. So we really can make a big difference in society, or we can also damage society. And hence, our plea has been for many years been a unified profession. That we see it in, and we're speaking frankly as professionals. There's many government departments, many legislators, many agencies, all requiring a type of accountant to issue a report on something, whether it's a compilation, accounting officer, independent review, limited assurance, reasonable assurance, business rescue. But what we find is a bit fractured approach in the profession, that each one would do its own training, own guidelines, and sometimes the guidelines that we issue differ from each other, which doesn't bode well for our profession internally, and it surely doesn't help regulators and government departments to know what is the best. I've always of the view that before South Africa professional bodies make a submission to IFAC or the ISSB or whoever, we should first consult internally, submit our documents to the IRBA, have them review our inputs, not to change them or not to get their permission, but then have a collective South African view. And that has been sorely lacking and is damaging our economy. So using this forum to make a plea for a unified South African approach when it comes to ISSB standards. And we have this opportunity now to work together. As SIBA, we started as a professional body in 1987. Back in the 80s, it was an amazing period with legislation when South Africa adopted the Close Corporation Act, which is still my favorite statute. And luckily, we could save it in Namibia. They're revising their Companies Act as well. So the 80s brought a plethora of new professional bodies, SAICA, SAIPA, SAIBA, and a number of others, for big companies and accounting office people to sit uncomfortably when you use that word. But the differential approach developed with an investor focus, large company, listed company perspective. There is talk that they might go for smaller companies as well, like IFRS for SME, but I don't see that on the cards as yet. So what we did, about 2 years ago, we developed a training program for our members in sustainability and climate with Readiness. We didn't have a big uptake in that. I think we were too quickly out of the blocks. The CIPC should have had this event 2 years ago, then we would have a lot more members doing that. So it just goes to show the wheels turn slowly. It's slowly turning. And again, thank you for the CIPC for hosting this event and bringing all of us together. Maybe we should have it more regularly, even if twice a year maybe, because we need a South African viewpoint. It doesn't help we go overseas, attend global forums and events and have different views on our economy. We would like as an institute to see that we support government's vision of what our economy should be. We would be very hesitant to submit anything outside of a government policy, but we don't specifically have one. I've read the stuff that the Presidential Climate Commission has said, but I don't know whether those are binding. There's different viewpoints from different ministers about oil and gas and improvements. And then we have developments in Namibia where we're the largest professional body in Namibia with amazing oil and gas finds that they just had. They estimate that their economy might double within the next 5 to 10 years. So moving from a $40 billion economy to 80 billion, they don't have enough professionals, not enough roads, not enough of anything to cover the wealth that they're going to generate out of oil and gas. Now, coming from a very low base, you would then be hesitant to strictly adopt ISSB standards if that would prevent them from doing economic development. And hence, a careful approach, and what we liked about the JSE approach, that you have to have a rational research informing the decision making. Our economy is 1%, contributes less than 1% to CO2, which is a small percentage. By that, I'm not saying we shouldn't do sustainability. I'm sure President Xi of China said that China will do sustainability in a pace that suits China. So this year and the next, China will build 30 new coal power plants. That I suppose will produce more CO2 than the whole of South Africa. So our efforts to reduce climate change, and I've read the Paris agreements again and the targets that we have to meet, I doubt that we will meet those targets. So if we miss them, then we will have more climate change. So the conversation should be much broader, I suppose, than just reducing CO2, but also building resilience into your economy, specific in your context of your country. But coming back to SIBA, so we are a accounting body, started in 87, 10,000 members, covering accountants across the spectrum. But our main concern would be the smaller practice. It'll obviously trickle down effect with the reporting starting with the JSE type companies and then maybe filtering down. But what we would like to see early on, I know it might be too early to discuss it, but how will the Big Four share in the service delivery to companies? It would be easy for the Big Four to take the whole reporting market, but that we will leave the rest of the profession. It's something that we need to consider. How do you empower smaller companies, smaller preparers to participate in this approach? And then when it comes to the reporting, on our first bite of the cherry, we did launch our own training certificate with Readiness, but then later got involved with the DTI, with UNCTAD, on SDGs, because at that stage the standard seems to us to apply mostly to listed companies and bigger ones, where the United Nations approach is more, some of them are more palatable for SMEs. So we worked with a software provider, DraftWorks, most of you would know them, and developed a specific working paper that even the smaller accountant can sit with his clients and start reporting as an addendum to the financial statements on the climate reduction efforts. And for that, we actually won a prize from UNCTAD for our initiative, and we'll be in 2 weeks' time presenting the product to the World Investment Forum in Abu Dhabi. So as a professional body, that would be our initial comments. Thanks.
Thanks, Nicholas. Lots of food for thought, I guess, for us as a profession in terms of how we go forward. And I guess there's no answer at this point in time. And I guess engagement like this, as you've mentioned, the subsea coordinating event like this will help drive that discussion and take it forward. Perhaps just moving over to a preparer perspective, Minnie, to you. Just to give us some thoughts, I know you in the role as a CSO at Alex Forbes, but you previously consulted to them. Perhaps just some backgrounds around the capacity challenges and how you navigated that in getting to Alex to where it is currently.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've got an interesting view on the world, given the position that we play in the South African economy. One is as a listed corporate ourselves, and the other is as an advisor to other corporates on employee benefits. We also have South Africa's largest multi-manager within our group, so we have exposure to a lot of different companies and a lot of different interests in each, depending on our perspective. I think probably one of my biggest concerns with regards to whether it's mandatory or voluntary reporting, or sort of embedding sustainability into corporate strategy, sort of the entire umbrella of sustainability and not just climate change, is around capacity, skills in the market, and the depth and breadth of those skills. I think anybody who's tried to recruit in a sustainability-related role will know that it's quite tricky these days, and there's certainly a war for talent. So some people on the benefiting side of that and others are on the losing side of that. which just shows you that there's just such a massive shortage of breadth and depth of skills. And I think that's concerning for me. You know, at Alex Forbes, obviously, we are interested in our own impact, our own sustainability, etc. But the majority of our impact actually happens in the world outside of our own sort of doors. And that's where you're able to see the quality and depth of experience or lack thereof. So I think this is something that we really need to look at right across the board. I'm a firm believer that, you know, at this point in time, it's too late to wait for dedicated sustainability professionals to emerge. There is definitely a place for that. I am one of those. There are plenty of large and small consulting firms which really do bring value to the marketplace, but the capacity is simply not enough to service the need. And so for me, really the combined approach is to make every profession a sustainability profession. To say, in addition to the sort of core function that you're mandated to do or required to do in your role, whether that be as an accountant, an auditor, an engineer, whatever it might be, that fundamentally sustainability needs to be baked in. And yes, we'll have dedicated resources, but those take a long time to build. You know, I've been evolving and now dedicated in the last 10 years of my career into sustainability, having started in the real estate environment myself. But it takes 20 years and I still don't know all the answers. You know, it's such a fast-moving a space at the moment. It's got breadth, it's got depth, and we talk about sustainability as if it's one thing. In truth, it's hundreds of different topics, each of which are complex in and of their own right. They each have breadth and depth that's required. And so we can't wait for perfection. We can't wait for, you know, scale in dedicated resources. We need to bake it into every profession, or certainly the ones that we feel are material in terms of getting the right outcomes.
Absolutely. I think the point on depth and breadth of skill sets is certainly a challenge, and I think the auditors in the room would definitely agree, because I mean, we, most cases, are financial backgrounds, and really having to upskill ourselves with regards to sustainability is not a 6-month exercise. As you've mentioned, it takes years and years because of the breadth of the topic. And I guess the next question is around academia and, you know, the role of tertiary institutions around bringing in this into the curriculum. And maybe from a SAICA perspective, is there anything that we see on the horizon around capacitating universities, even the training programs that are rolled out to the professional services offices?
Yeah, thank you. So I think all the comments that I've heard from my colleagues have just made me remember of also, you know, one of the recent reports from the Trust, Elderman's Trust Barometer, which one of the key findings actually said that finance and business are expecting accountants to lead in the ESG agenda. And I think as SAICA, we have been positioning ourselves to be able to lead and facilitate conversations that are around sustainability. As such, one of the, I guess, roles of the STC is to be kind of a sounding board and give guidance to one of our internal teams in terms of learning and development, where one of the core focus areas is sustainability to be integrated in the post-qualification programs. So there's such one that does exist currently for a chief value officer, which is a postgrad diploma with VETS. And there's also a lot of legwork that has already been done in terms of building into learnings into a pre-qualification qualification that will be able to really now be integrated within the competency framework. I think it's CA 2025 of SAICA, that will include sustainability as really one of the integral components of that competency framework. And hopefully within a few years, then we're able to produce more, you know, CAs are using already the, you know, the skill sets that they have, but also I think that just the natural maybe capability. I believe that we all choose the different, I would say, professions that originally we come from, and naturally. So that whole kind of structured process to bring in the controls that we need and the processes, and also, I guess, really elevate the ethical behaviors that we need in terms of being able then to have data that is more credible so that there is trust built within the sustainability reporting that we are doing, and also building those resilient companies.
Absolutely. Just checking, Lungita, how are you for time? 8 minutes, okay. Maybe we can just round up per person. I'm starting with you, Imri. I know you had some comments that you wanted to bring up earlier on.
Yes, no, thank you. I'll be quick. First of all, I think from an auditor perspective, to cover both quickly what we're doing and from a capacity perspective, the audit profession has always been fairly multidisciplinary. Even in the current audits or financial audits, you need experts to come along, you know, to value, and even in the mining industry, especially, you need environmental specialists already in any event. With that said, as the IRBA, as far back as 2018, we already issued a number of guidelines, etc., for auditors in anticipation of early adoption of sustainability reporting, and we've issued in 2019 and again in 2022. We've issued examples and sample illustrative engagement letters, assurance reports that covers both limited, reasonable assurance and even combined assurance. So the last document we issued, or a guide we issued, was a staff audit practice alert late last year with some frequently asked questions, these are all available on our website. The IAASB issued the International Standard on Sustainability Assurance, ISSA 5000, which is titled General Requirements for Sustainability Assurance Engagements, and it's currently out for public comment, so please have a look at it. The closing date for comments is the 1st of December. What's very important, one thing to note about these standards is that it's principle-based, it's overarching in nature, and it's also profession agnostic, which is quite an important element to note. So it can be used by professional accountants, auditors, and even other non-accountant assurance providers. So it's very broad. I believe that these standards, I think we, as an audit profession, we have it easier in setting a standard because it's mostly principle-based. But the onus here is on the firms. I've heard the 6 global network firms in April all say that they are heavily investing in sustainability and their own capacity, etc. So the onus is on the firms to build up the capacity to enable them to provide this assurance, because it would go against the principle of taking on an assurance engagement if they don't have the capacity or the knowledge to deliver on it. So I think I would stop there from an auditing profession perspective.
Thanks. Maybe over to you, Nick, just to conclude.
Thank you. Yeah, the profession is blessed with amazing smart people, standard setters that share information. You can download the standards from the ISB. IFAC has amazing resources. So that is a blessing, and then the work done, we regularly visit the IRB website and download documents and engagement. So that is really, I think we are a step ahead there. Just one element that we also started doing as a body, we've aligned with, we're founding members of the International CFO Alliance. It's 15 countries, including Morocco, Indonesia, Egypt, not Egypt, France, Italy, Germany, Brazil, Argentina, most of West Africa, to focus on a CFO certification, if you will, and in that curriculum built in sustainability. And through the ICFOA, we've also submitted our submissions to the ISSB, and have different work groups that we hope to align with some of the stakeholders here today, international tax, automation, and climate, obviously. So it's an exciting future, but I think just one that we need to treat it just very carefully. One, for us, it's economics. What is our economic policy? And any decision we make, how does that create jobs and create economic growth? That to us should be primary before anything else. It's not adopting standards for the sake of standards. It's not adopting standards because it's what the international community does. It's adopting standards if they create jobs. Because we have 30 million unemployed people, and we rather should choose jobs than if I know some people would say there isn't a dichotomy between the two, but it's a real economic decision, and that we would like to sit with all of you and try and resolve. And especially in reporting, I think when we report, we shouldn't only report, and I think the gentleman at the back said it also, on climate, but what effect will it have if we close a plant? So the company must report the job losses that it's going to cause if it disinvests, because that's a real cost.
Certainly, yes. I think the social aspect, as highlighted earlier on, is quite a critical part in the South African context, and I think the JSE has focused on that quite a lot in their guidance. Maybe quickly to you, Lee, just to close off from your side.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think just to reinforce the point around depth and breadth of skills and experience, and for us to also apply our minds well beyond the assurance elements of it. I think that's a critical component in terms of bringing higher degrees of certainty and comfort to us as investors. But in addition to that, we really need people to be embedded in the heart of organizations that are in the real economy, and driving sustainable practices from within, and ideally getting assurance on those as well. But yeah, just focusing on depth, breadth of skills, and primarily, to my mind, in the strategy space, figuring out how to marry, truly sustainable thinking in an integrated way, right into the heart of your strategy, and then allowing it to have a ripple effect.
Absolutely.
From there.
Yeah, agreed, totally agreed. Embedding into the business strategy is quite pivotal. Fantastic, thank you. And last to you, Namsa.
Thank you. So I think from our side, we've done like different training programs in terms of both technical, but also, as you mentioned, they're really one of the most pivotal areas, integrating sustainability strategy into the core strategy of the business. We've also looked at really how then within that program do you sit and do materiality assessment aligning to the goals that you've set for the organization, and how does that really work in terms of then aligning back to the standards that you've specifically chosen, going back then to really ensuring the whole area around data reliability, because as you choose your standards, really, then the focus becomes, do you have the data that is aligned to the matrix that you've chosen, or do you have similar data that is available, or do you absolutely have no data at all? So we're trying to really reach a huge number of our members, those that are already experts, but also bring in those that are fairly new, so bring together all of that kind of understanding. And I think what we really just need to remember at the end of the day are the basics or the foundations of corporate reporting, which are kind of coming true in all of the standards, which is materiality, your fair presentation, and really being able to have your disclosures in terms of connected information with that element of really then encouraging the indirect and direct impacts coming through with impact also around that for all stakeholders.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot to the panelists for their valuable inputs and insights today. I think for me is looking forward to the discussions going forward, and also the various working groups that will be performed as a result of this event, and how the various technical committees from the various regulators can input into that and contribute going forward. Thank you.